Okay. Testing, testing, 1 2 1 2. Testing, testing, 1 2 1 2. Testing, testing. Let me just join this live. Two. Testing, testing, 1 2 1 2. Testing, testing. Let me just join this live. Okay. So, um, got more questions. Got more questions that I'm going to answer here. All right. First and foremost, we'll do more consciousness involved. Just put this. Okay. Welcome everybody, or well, nobody for now. Third live. I have to make these into shorts. I have to remember. Anyways, first question. Why does consciousness exist at all? I believe consciousness. I like the analogy of the mirror. The mirror analogy is one of my favorite. It's understanding that this reality at first was unconscious. There wasn't anything to be made aware of, or for awareness to even exist. I won't put anthropomorphic desires placed on the universe and say that the universe wanted. It's a very important thing to understand. The universe doesn't want anything. It just does. Without meaning, without desire, without personal intention. But somehow, some way, the universe formulated enough energy, enough compacted energy to create cognition, right? Now, this cognition wasn't meta at first. It was just very rudimentary, uh, very fundamental, but it grew. It grew over time. It grew with language. It grew with communications. And thus, now we have what we know as awareness, consciousness, super consciousness, transcendence, whatever you want to say it. Consciousness is the flip side of the unconscious reality. It is the mirror that reflects upon itself, okay? When something gains enough energy and is compacted within this energy, it starts to reflect. Starts to reflect what? Everything. Everything that it is, everything that it isn't. For as long as it is aware of it, it is that thing. And I feel like that's the distinction that we humans just can't make. We can't understand that we are existence itself. We are too busy being humans. We are too busy investing ourselves in these human egos and the human narratives that we have cultivated for ourselves. So we forget. We forget that we are existence itself. We forget that we are the mirror that reflects this reality. And many of the problems, personally, societally, is all because of this forgetfulness. It's not something that is taught, it's just something that is realized through the experience of life. I think if anybody sits with themselves enough in different environments with different people and experience different things, you start to feel this sense of interconnectedness, right? Taking that a step further, you realize that the interconnectedness isn't from point A and point B, it's just point A. It's the fact that you are aware of point A and all that contains point A that makes you conscious. So why does consciousness exist at all? Well, because existence exists. And existence somehow formulated a way to be aware of itself, for the mirror to reflect upon itself. It's language is the greatest limiter, but it's also what has allowed us to establish this conversation in the first place. It's very confusing, but um yeah, it's just the reflection of existence. And unfortunately, we have created too many distractions far and beyond and between to try and distance ourselves from that truth, quote unquote. Second question. Can consciousness be measured? Brain matter can be measured, things of the material realm could be measured, but awareness itself is above and beyond anything that we have ever created, we ever have in terms of senses or instruments. So no, consciousness in the most inherent of ways is unable to be measured. And I feel as though it will always be that that will always be the case. We will never understand how to measure this thing because it's not corporeal. It's not tangible. It's not something that is of this realm. It's the thing that is aware of this realm in the first place. So yeah, is awareness fundamental or emergent? See, that's the thing with labels. How do we label awareness? How do we understand whether or not it's foundational or it's something that has been arised from something else? We don't know. It's a redundant question within itself. Um, because the second that we say that it is one thing rather than the other, we place a limitation on it that we just can't fully wrap our heads around. We can't conceive that limitation. And so it's, it's a certain sense of humility that has to be understood and has to be grasped for us to understand that we can't place awareness in those two boxes. It's like the coin, it is fundamentally and emergent. It's both and neither. It is the thing that allows us to be aware of the fundamentals and the emergence in the first place. So, yeah. Could an unconscious universe exist? Well, it has for I think 13.8 billion years. Um, the reflection has happened on this planet sometime around what hundreds of thousands of years ago. It would be cocky, arrogant, selfish to assume human centrism. So, yeah, before this planet was a planet, it was just dust and it floated around and stars were being made. Things were very hot and then very cold, and then things adjusted and whatnot. Yeah, an unconscious universe could exist, but then again, there would be nothing to be aware of it. So the entire question itself sort of just dissolves because there is no thing to be answered. There's nothing to be questioned if the unconscious universe, did exist. It just was. And that is it's a scary thought because it's beyond what we know as reality. To be completely unaware of something is it's not something that we humans can understand. We come from a privileged place of awareness, and for as long as that is the result, we can't truly wrap our heads around something like that. So, um, let's see. I thought something you produce or something you experience. Thoughts are the hmm. I think it's the stimuli between you and the environment. I don't think if there was an environment to be stimulated around, there would be no thoughts to be produced in the first place, right? There would be nothing to formulate, there would be nothing to be aware of. And for that, yeah, it's tricky. I think hold up. Um, hello, hello. Okay, never mind. Um, so yeah, thoughts only exist because of the interaction between us, the observer, and the experience of life, reality. If we were just floating awareness, there would be nothing to have thoughts about. There would be nothing to wrap our heads around, right? So it's simultaneously a production and an experience. Now the question is it fundamental? Is it emergent? Thoughts themselves, I believe, are emergent. There was a time before conscious thoughts existed, the awareness of those thoughts. And I think for as long as, temporally speaking, there was something before that, you know, it is an emerging factor. So, um, can a mind fully understand itself? No. The unconscious exists. We know that it exists. There truly is nothing we could do about it. There are things that either exist bodily or beyond that we simply cannot wrap our heads around. And for that, in totality, the mind will never be truly understood. Neither through science or through spirituality. It's just one of those things that there will always be blind spots. No matter how much awareness you possess, there will always be things that you are not aware of. And that gap is, I think, infinitely vast. Is memory the foundation of selfhood? I would assume so. I don't like that answer, but once again, I have to humble myself and admit that it probably is, you know? Um, if we go by the analogy of the ship of Theseus, right? And we say that if we strip away the memories and the experiences that created us, who we are, and then we were to look in the mirror, we wouldn't recognize ourselves as ourselves in that very moment, right? We would be something completely different. Um, there's a problem though, because people, I guess me, tend to correlate awareness with selfhood. I believe awareness is the true selfhood. Everything else is either illusory or emergent. It is something that is inherently made of. And memories, when it comes to the human ego, that's what it is. That's what creates it. You know, if I were to wipe my memories as to who I am as an individual, I wouldn't be an individual anymore, right? I would just be this floating observer with nothing to hold on to, nothing to grasp as, oh yeah, that is me or that isn't. Um, what is the difference between awareness and attention? Attention is a pinpointed focus of awareness. Awareness happens consciously or unconsciously, right? Like our human senses and understanding that we're able to perceive eyes that are peering on us and we automatically know where they are, why they're looking, you know what I'm saying? Even if they're behind us, there are things that are being done unconsciously that we could still categorize as awareness. But focus and attention and concentration, these are all things that only exist in the conscious realm. So, yeah, awareness has a much broader scope than attention. Um, and I just feel like it's necessary to be for that distinction to be made, you know? Um, yeah. Let's see. Can intelligence exist without consciousness? See, that's also one of those things. How do we categorize intelligence? Truth is, we can't, you know? The octopus, right? It doesn't have the same self-awareness and metacognition as us, but we can't deny it's intelligent. It's a very intelligent species, a very intelligent organism. Um, Consciousness is the thing that is the container of intelligence. Everything mentally, emotionally, spiritually exists in the grasp of consciousness. But that's for as far as we know as humans. If we were to remove the term of consciousness, I think ants are pretty intelligent. They're very foundationally and I guess inherently not aware. But regardless, the fact how they communicate, the fact how they know just how to operate on a very inherent level is just it's not something that could be replaced or recreated, you know? So yeah, intelligence itself is probably something that is completely outside of the scope of what we know as consciousness. As you can see, I'm always trying to make the distinction between the actual thing itself versus our human inability to understand the concept in full scope because the fact we're just human, the fact we are limited by these senses that we have been given. So yeah. Um are dreams revealing something or merely generating something? I think I saw a while ago something that says you can't really recreate a face that you haven't seen before. So like it could be somebody that you just like walked across and unconsciously your brain captured that face and I guess replicated it into your dream. But I have the notion that if you haven't experienced something, you can't dream of it, you know? Um, and if that notion is true, then dreams are sort of just like the AI generated realistic version of reality, right? It just cycles through what we know, who we know, how we know it, and just reformulates it. You know what I'm saying? And it's true that typically people who we spend a lot of time with or things that we see in our day-to-day lives are more likely to be prominent in our dreams. And if that's the case, then I guess it's just this way of the unconscious communicating, or not communicating, I guess, but yeah, just generating this environment, this reality in the dream space. I don't think there are revelations. People might have like glimpses of the future, which is a pretty freaky thing. Like déjà rêvé. That's a pretty tricky concept. I don't have the full grasp of it, and so I'm not gonna act like I do. But I think dreams are just the generation um, of the things that we experience in this reality. So, okay, now we are done with the consciousness questions. Human nature. Are humans naturally cooperative or competitive? Or both. I think it would be idiotic in a sense to try and put those two things separately and in boxes. We are both naturally cooperative and competitive. We have the means for altruism, but also the means to dominate. It's something that is, I wouldn't say paradoxical. In some way, it doesn't correspond, in others, it does. But both of those things are natural. They cannot be separate. They are, once again, two sides of the same coin. Why do people seek status? Belonging, you know? Um, for as far as we know, we are a very, very socially species, you know? we tend to want to comply with each other, to be liked by one another. And for as long as that's the case, and the fact that those instances create dopamine and satisfaction in the brain, we will seek whatever that thing is. And so status is sort of the way of, yeah, I am very belonging in this community, very belonging in this environment. And for as long as I am so, it feels good. And for as long as it feels good, I'm going to chase that thing again and again and again. So yeah, status is inherent because it just makes us feel good. Um, what separates wisdom from intelligence? I've always said this in the recent years of my life that intelligence is the application of knowledge, and wisdom is just a complexity of knowledge, a very deep and introspective understanding of knowledge. Because knowledge is just rudimentary. I have to stop saying that word. Uh, Inherently speaking, knowledge is just information. It's data that our brain captures and translates it into something that we can reformulate to other individuals as well as ourselves. So knowledge is knowledge. That is foundational. Wisdom is the introspectiveness of that knowledge. It's the playing the devil's advocate, stress testing it, going through and analyzing it and understanding that wisdom is the better way of reformulating knowledge. It's the better way of reformulating the data that our brain intakes. And intelligence is more so, how do we apply this knowledge in our day-to-day lives? You know, you could be very aware and very wise, but you can be sort of, I guess, stupid in a sense, especially if it comes to books or just, life smart, street smart, whatever. It's the application that matters the most. And yeah, that's it. At the end of the day, there's also the point of adaptation. How can we adapt this intelligence into our day-to-day lives? How can we adapt this wisdom into our day-to-day lives as well? Is maturity gained through experience or age? Both. But for somebody who is in their early 20s, I have to say it's experience. There are people, decades older than me that, I guess, having come to the same conclusions, having been aware of the same things, it's experience that drives most of the maturity forward. There is the brain development part, but I feel like once it truly starts to settle in around your 20s, it's a thing of experience. Somebody who is sheltered in a controlled environment has a lack of information and knowledge will be mentally stunted, you know, in comparison to somebody who experiences this world and the self in a very deep and complex way. So I guess at a certain point, I would say around teenagehood, adulthood, early adulthood, it stops going through age and starts going through experience. Yeah. Um, why do people repeat destructive patterns? Hmm. Comfort. That's the truth. It's all about comfort. It's all about it's all about being scared of either failing or being scared of either making the wrong decisions or rejection or this or that. But if it is inherently destructive for either the people or them around us, there is something that they are chasing and something that they are running away from. And typically, it should be the reverse. You should run towards the things that you are afraid of and run from the things that feel a bit too good, a bit too easy, right? Um, are people more driven by fear or desire? Throughout human history, it's been fear, but as of recently, the leisure has taken over, and it's very well been desires. You know, the I saw something not too long ago, a few days ago actually. It said the human greed started with the desire to want to eat, not not needing to eat, like not our bodies needing the food, but just eating to eat, eating for the pleasure of it. Um, and when that transition has become, I guess, something somewhat globally, you just go down the street and you're able to eat anything and do anything, and it's the leisure and the comfort, right? So I'd say it depends the era of time. For most of human history, it's been fear, but for as of recent modern times, it's desire. There obviously still are parts of the world that are driven inherently by fear. They don't have the time or the resources to want personal leisure desires. So, yeah, it comes down to self-preservation. Do you want to survive? The human brain typically says, yeah, you know? Even if you do mentally suffer, the chances are that you'll see the next day because your vessel, your body, physiologically wants to. What makes somebody admirable? Connection, you know? How honest, how genuine, how authentic you can be as an individual, and how deeply you can connect with the individuals around you. There is nothing nobody likes more. Let me reformulate that. Um, One of humans' most favorite attributes is being seen by another, being comforted by another, accepted by another, embraced by another. And for as long as you are able to make other people feel good, feel well within their existence, people admire you, you know? Or just being unauthentically yourself. By doing so, you inspire other people to fit that character as well. So yeah, can character be taught? I like the Play-Doh analogy, you know? A fresh pot of Play-Doh is so much different than Play-Doh that you just leave out for months, years. The hardness of it, it gets difficult to mold it into whatever form you want. So it's about the early years of your life because there is this foundational character that does exist, that is formulated and is hard to change. But the mind is malleable, and it's very important to understand, to not forget the malleability of the mind. We can allow ourselves to solidify this character, who we are as people, if it's not good. It's not good for us, and it's not good for our environment. It's not good for the people around us. It's a constant effort at taking that rough Play-Doh and trying to make it soft again. It could be done. It's hard. It takes effort, but it could be done. It's not impossible. What is the difference between strength and hardness? I love this question because now the rock and the water. If I were to ask the average person, what do you think is stronger, water or the rock? People are going to say the rock. But in relative standards, the rock is very brittle. It could be broken by another rock. It could be broken by a material that is stronger than the rock. But what about water? You can't crush water. You can't divide water, you know? You can't take a diamond and break water. It's an unbreakable substance. It's just gonna flow through it, around it, get absorbed by it, but inevitably it's still going to have the contents, right? Whereas the rock will shatter. The rock will be split into a multitude of pieces. It won't be a rock. It will be pebbles. It will be, shards of gravel, right? So the true strength hides behind flexibility, formlessness, and adaptability. Okay? We need to stop perceiving hardness as strength. The rock is stagnant. The rock doesn't adapt to its environment, right? It is what it is. And if the weather changes and whatever, it could corrode, it could change, whatnot. But water, if it's too hot, it becomes vapor. Does it change? No. It becomes ice cubes. Does it change? No. It still remains the same, you know? And once again, you can take that vapor and you could take those ice cubes and you could make it water once again. But it's very hard to take those little shards of gravel and reformulate them into the same rock that was before. So for that, water is strength, the rock is hardness. Strength is adaptation, flexibility and formlessness, and hardness is the opposite. It's stagnation. It is the inability to be open. And yeah. So time and change. Does time actually pass or do we? The dimension of time, entropy, it is a very real thing. If anything, we don't change. The awareness that is invested in this vessel doesn't change. The physiology of this vessel, it ages, it changes, right? We could even get Alzheimer's and whatnot. But the observer itself doesn't change. It is cut by hours of sleep, hours of unconscious activity, but it doesn't change. The days fly, the years fly. But you as an individual, you can still look in the mirror at the end of the day. You can still look at the trees and the birds. So for that, we are the unchanging awareness. What is everything else. It's the environment. It's, metal rusts, leaves fall, things change, dust collects, right? That is entropy doing its thing. So time itself as the dimension exists and it does pass. However, we as the awareness, we don't. Is the future already determined? I'll just introduce the coin analogy. The coin analogy is the indentation of the heads and tails. Did it always exist? No. We humans have indented these two sides to correlate to different aspects. One is heads and one is tails. However, no matter where we flip it, no matter what we do with it, it is made and constructed of the same substance. Right? The same metal. Just because we look at one side and then the other doesn't mean the substance changes. It's the same coin. Right? So determinism or free will is not something that we can finally have an answer to. Because the present moment exists, and for as long as this moment exists, that question will never truly be answered. Why do humans struggle with change? Comfort, being so sedentary, being so invested in the habits that have been introduced for us, it's very hard to correlate with adaptation, right? Some people have. Some people are always moving and some people always have. And so for them, it's very easy to just change. It's very easy for them to adapt. But especially in modern society, things are so leisure and comfort and habituated that it's very hard for us to want change, especially when this thing currently makes us feel good. That's why we don't want our lovers to die. That's why we don't want certain arcs of our life to come to an end, because it feels good. And we don't know if the next arc of our lives will feel good. You know? We can miss our lovers that have passed and whatnot, and there's nothing to do about it. It is the most hopeless and helpless case ever. Allowing ourselves to accept our mortality and also allowing ourselves to accept the mortality of the ones around us. Is nostalgia beneficial or harmful? It could be both, man. You can invest yourself in nostalgia for the rest of your life. Look back on your high school days or your college days or your childhood and say, oh, that was such a good time period, and do nothing to create good memories at this very moment or for the future. But nostalgia could also be beneficial to say, wow, I lived a pretty good life, you know? Who's to say that I can't continue to live a good life as well, leading on into the future? It's nothing is set in stone, you know? And so it really just depends, how do you see it? How can you harness this nostalgia? Will you allow it to crush you, or will you allow it to propel you into the future with passion and make progress so that when that time passes, you can look back and say, wow, can't believe I was nostalgic for this and that and that and that. And you keep being nostalgic because you make good memories. You live a good life. And that's what matters the most. What makes an experience feel meaningful in hindsight? Laughter, joy, amusement. Every good memory that I have, well, I wouldn't say every single one, but a good solid 95% of them has been with other people, you know? I feel like for me, connection and investing myself in that connection, it feels good, you know? Or traveling the world, seeing new places, new people, new things. That feels meaningful. It feels like I have done something with this existence, you know? And yeah, um there hasn't been many times I could say alone that I've been like, wow, like that was a good moment, you know? There were those moments where I've been aware and I've looked at the sky and said, wow, I'm glad to be alive. And I remember those moments. They were good, but first and foremost, I think it's the memories I've made with other people that pop up in my head the most. And yeah, it's connection, it's joy, it's whimsy, it's wonder. You can't recreate those things. Never. Can anything truly stay the same? Everything changes constantly, day in and day out, regardless if we're aware of it or not. Regardless if we do the same exact actions, there will always be something different. There will always be something in that line of causality that will shift, that will change. And for as long as that happens, nothing truly stays the same. Everything is in constant motion. It's an infringement of the order of this reality for things to stay in stasis. So yeah, change is inevitable, regardless if it is conscious or unconscious. Is permanence desirable? To be with our lovers forever, to be on this vacation spot forever. It's what we want, but only because it makes us feel good. Permanence, let's say immortality, will get tiresome and boring regardless as to what we experience, how long we experience, who we experience it with. It's going to get boring. And for as long as that's the case, we need to embrace the impermanence. It's the reason why things are impermanent that allow us to delve into meaning, indulge ourselves into values and principles, right? With enough permanence, all of those things corrode, all those things dissolve, and they don't mean anything anymore. So no, permanence is not desirable at all, in in the ultimate total sense of it. What would life look like without memory? Shit. Ask someone with Alzheimer's. I don't know. Is their life good? Are they able to be joyous and happy? I don't know. I don't have it. So I don't know. But I think it's the formulation of the ego and the connection we have with others, the joy that we are able to exude from life that allows us to be content. Life without memory would be, I think, inherently chaotic and would not be satisfactory for anybody, for anything. Is personal growth always good? Depends on what way you're growing. Are you growing in a way that will please the people around you, or are you growing in a way that will please yourself as an individual? To what extent are you growing for or towards? Those are the questions that you need to ask, right? You can't always depend on others for the validation. You can't always depend on others for the growth. At a certain point, it's you. It will always be you at the end of the day. That constant fight, that constant strife, it's you versus you. So for as long as you are growing towards your personal goals, growth is good. But if you're growing to live a life in which you will be accepted by other individuals and not yourself, to neglect your personal desires, that's not good growth. You're not growing in the way that you want to. You're growing in the way that other people want you to. Don't be a slave to others. Allow yourself to be a pioneer for yourself and yourself alone. And through that, you will be able to connect with people honestly and genuinely. That's it. Let's see. What should never change about a person? Authenticity, you know? I think, well, actually, you could be an authentically shitty person. It's not a good sort of authenticity. Never change about a person. I think honesty with oneself, first and foremost. Don't lie to yourself. Don't try to delude yourself into something you know isn't real or true. Honesty with the self is the most important. You can be in denial about it. You can lie to other people, but for how long? For how long will you run away from the truth? To look at yourself in the face and to look at the way that you live and say, damn, this needs to change, you know? Or damn, this needs to stay, right? Honesty with the self is the most important. Lie to the world, sure, but please don't lie to yourself. Give yourself the grace to be authentic, to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I either know or I either don't know what I want to do. I love myself or I don't. But don't lie about it. If you don't love yourself, don't lie about it. If you don't love your life, don't lie about it. That honesty is, for me, the first step in the great process of changing. Let's see now. Okay. Relationships. I don't know why I just got tired so fast. How do I have 2 likes? It's funny. Okay, so next segment is about relationships. What creates genuine connection? Genuine connection. The answer's in the question, man, you know? Are you going to lie to your partner about who you are, what you're doing? Are you going to lie about the little things that will accumulate into bigger things, right? How long can you put up this facade? How long can they put up that facade? When will it end? When will the truth be told? When will the masks crack? That's the most important. Don't let that be the case, right? Don't let yourself get to the point in which you aren't you anymore, and that you've just become this person or this thing that other people like, but isn't you. At that point, you're just a theater kid. You're an actor. You're a jester. Don't be that. If you are an unlikable person, then embrace that, because you don't know if everybody will unlike you, will dislike you. There's somebody for everybody, you know? No matter how bitchy, no matter how complacent, no matter how problematic. But it's also a thing to understand that, shit, I need to work on myself, right? That personal growth will go extremely far. And it's not something that could just be overlooked. Damn, okay, there's a lot of questions left. We have relationships, knowledge, understanding, suffering, growth, civilization, and then deep live stream questions. Okay, I think I'll do like half of this and then we'll do it. Hello to whoever's in the chat. All right, is love a choice, a feeling, or both? Inherently speaking, love could be dumbed down to biochemical reactions, but I don't like that. I don't like that fundamental answer, that scientific answer. It is something a lot deeper. That genuine connection that you have with another individual, it can be replicated, you know? You can't lie to that person for so long and say, fuck, they don't know who I am and they're loving a facade, right? True love is embracing who you are authentically and for them to do the same. For as long as you guys will never reach that crossroad, you can't say that you love that other person. And the same goes with yourself. If you constantly and consistently indulge in lies, you will never be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love that person. I love who I am. You can't. And for as long as that's the case, love will always be a choice. It's a conscious choice for you to look at yourself, the light and the shadow, the good and the bad, to accept it and to embrace it. It's not something that could be recreated, right? It's something that has to be done with both experience and introspectiveness. So yeah, through and through, love is a choice. Next question. Can understanding someone completely ruin mystery? Mystery needs to be dissolved. Mystery needs to be broken, you know? I don't think that we can ever, especially now, right? Being nonchalant, having like aura and whatnot, it's something that captivates people and attracts people. But what truly allows people to stay is understanding them, is understanding that, wow, their problems aren't so different than mine, and we're human. For as long as we understand that we're both flesh, and we both understand that we can make mistakes and flaws and whatnot, understanding somebody will allow you to love them better. So fuck the mystery, you know? Why do humans seek companionship? It's rooted in our nervous system. It's the way that we have reproduced and recreated for as long as human history. That's also a pretty fundamental question I don't typically like. I would like to say there's a more spiritual answer to it, but truly it is biochemicals at the end of the day. Can relationships exist without expectations? Oh wait, I skipped one. Is loneliness a problem or a teacher? It's both. It's both. I think everybody at some point in life should just be alone. Not to feel loneliness, but to detach themselves from stimuli of environment and stimuli of other individuals. If you do so, your introspectiveness, your ability to articulate and understand yourself will increase a tenfold. And I think that's what the modern man misses out on the most, right? Why is there no modern day Socrates? Well, Socrates had all the time in the world to indulge in his thoughts, his introspectiveness, but the modern man is hustle, 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 move, move, move. For as long as that's the case, we distance ourselves from thought so fucking much. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. But yeah, there is that difference of being alone versus loneliness. Being alone for too long, being in solitary, it's an infringement of our central nervous system. It needs connection. It needs warmth. It needs touch. It needs love from other individuals in order for us to be whole or content, you know? I don't know if the Buddhists who are in those monasteries are truly content with themselves. Maybe, maybe not, you know? But for as long as I know, loneliness too long is a great issue. It's a great issue that will only ever be over it will only ever be, I guess, solved by connection. It will only ever be solved by allowing ourselves to indulge in another person, right? So, yeah. I guess so. Um, let's see. Can relationships exist without expectations? Expectations is more of a it's more of an unconscious thing, but it's also something that we can work on consciously, right? I don't think that I don't think that we can totally absolve ourselves or dissolve expectations themselves. But I think it's just the idea that we can't allow reality to be festered by expectations, to understand that whatever we cultivate in our mind will be inherently different to what is presented to us, across us, right? It's that understanding and that acceptance that things might not be how we think they are. And for as long as we accept that and accept whatever form of reality comes through, that is that is embracing the change and the because you have to understand expectations are very rudimentary, right? We have expectations because of our early ancestors. They needed to understand, right, problem solving. They needed to understand pattern recognition. But the modern man and the standards that our relationships are, sort of cultivated around, they're not good, you know? Expectations and standards of such high degrees, they will only allow us to be extremely lonely. We will never find partners that we can quote unquote settle down with because we don't want to settle, you know? And social media has completely taken that out of proportion, unfortunately. So yeah, relationships could exist without um okay, let me reformulate this. Relationships could exist with the acceptance that expectations will not conclude or be the same exact thing as reality. We can have expectations, but it is the rejection of those expectations that will allow us to indulge in reality fully. What makes trust possible? Experience, honesty, loyalty. It is results at the end of the day. It is so much easier to trust action than thought, action than emotion, right? People can say they love you, But it's proof at the end of the day that will allow you to trust that person so much more, you know? It's very hard to just trust people on words, especially if people's actions have infringed trust before. But me personally, no matter how much a person has hurt me, I will always allow another individual to get a completely blank slate of me as an individual. Because why will I stain you with my past? Why will I take that baggage of somebody that hurt me and project it onto the next person over? All that will ever do is just stain that current relationship, that current connection I have with that other person. And you know what? If that person hurt me the same way as the last, maybe I just need to switch the demographic. Maybe I need to change things a little. But I'm not going to carry that baggage and put it on to the next person and the next person and the next person. I will always, no matter how many times I break my heart, allow somebody to have a clean slate as to who I am as an individual, because they deserve it. They do not deserve the tarnished and, trust issued version of me. They allow the version that will see them for who they are, and trust them for who they are. And that's the thing that not a lot of people want to wrap their heads around, because they don't want to get hurt. It's scary. Yeah, it hurts. But you know what hurts more? Destroying a relationship because of the past. Destroying a relationship because of something that doesn't currently exist anymore. That's one of the worst curses that we can place upon ourselves as individuals. Is unconditional love possible? A mother's love, a parent's love, spending time with somebody so many years will become unconditional eventually. Conditional typically has to do with transactional, and we all know that transactional love is the curse of today. So yeah, it's possible, but it's definitely something that has to do with experience and time and effort and honesty. Do we ever truly know another person? No. I will always be very rudiment. I will always be very rooted in the idea, the understanding that there will always be an infinite gap between me and another individual. No matter how much we see each other, no matter how much time we spend with each other, I am not them and they are not me. We will never know the machinations of each other's minds. We will never know the way our subconscious works, no matter how much time we spend with that person. So no, we will never truly understand another person or know another person, and that's okay. I think it's the acceptance of that that allows us to be partially in love and connected to another individual. What makes a friendship last? Honesty above all else. It's honesty. It's trust. It's understanding that no matter what happens in life, the eras change or whatnot, but the connection stays. Even if we change as individuals, the connection stays. It's adapting to that change as well that makes friendships last. The problem is sometimes life just guides us in different paths. The change of person just splits people apart, and I think that that's authentic and natural and should be accepted. We shouldn't cling on to friendships that we know are going to be divided sooner or later through time or through experience. And I think it's the humility and understanding that allows us to be authentic and allows us to continue on the future creating authentic friendships. So yeah, that is all for this one. Next live, we will have knowledge, understanding, suffering, growth, civilization, humanity, and the deep questions. I've reached an hour. I think it's my longest live yet. Yeah, definitely. Anyways, thank you to the one viewer who was here. I'm gonna have to go and make some shorts. I think it's the only way I'll ever be able to really come across to a very large amount of individuals. Yeah. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Love you all.